Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and Giallo enthusiasts. It's Tanner Leeser, your host for The King in Giallo. This is episode 26 of the Forgotten Giallo film series, 1972 Part 5, and I've got 3 more gialli here I'd like to highlight. As always, thanks in no small part to Troy Howarth's book on Giallo cinema, So Deadly, So Perverse, 50 Years of Italian Giallo Films, Volume 1, 1963 to 1973. Like this video and subscribe to The King in Giallo. Click the notification bell icon so YouTube doesn't hide my new content from you, and if you enjoy what I do here, please consider subscribing to my Patreon. I have loads of exclusive content that can only be found there. On to the video. The first Giallo for the video we will discuss is The Red-Headed Corpse, also called The Sensuous Doll and Sweet Spirits. It is an Italian and Turkish co-production released on August 10th, 1972. The film is directed and written by Renzo Russo. Music is composed by Santa Maria Romatelli. The cast is comprised of Farley Granger as John Ward, Erica Blanc as the Sensuous Doll, Krista Nell as the Subservient Doll, and Ivana Novak as Mala. The plot centers on John Ward, a reclusive and alcohol-dependent artist whose life is steeped in loneliness and creative stagnation. When a free-spirited hippie gifts him a life-sized female mannequin, John brings it home and begins treating it as though it were a real woman, speaking to it, dressing it, and gradually projecting his desires and frustrations onto it. As his mental state deteriorates, the mannequin appears to take on a life of its own, engaging in romantic and sexual affairs that John both resents and obsesses over. Caught in a spiral of jealousy, paranoia, and delusion, John's grasp on reality crumbles as the line between fantasy and truth dissolves into violence and obsession. Though made on a very limited budget, the film is a curious and occasionally fascinating psychological portrait. Its inclusion in the Giallo discussion is debatable. There are both reasons to count it in and reasons to leave it out. But ultimately, it earns a place due to its thematic kinship with earlier psychodramas like Mario Bava's Hatchet for the Honeymoon, 1970. While it doesn't come close to matching Bava's craftsmanship, the overlap in subject matter is undeniable. The Red-Headed Corpse resists easy classification. It plays with the language of fantasy, horror, and giallo, touching on all 3 without fully committing to any one genre. There's no traditional black-gloved killer lurking in the shadows, but the central figure is clearly disturbed, and whether or not he has committed a crime remains an open question throughout. That uncertainty carries through to the final moments. Just when the film appears to have explained everything away, it delivers a parting image that casts doubt on everything we thought we knew. Had the film been given more attention and polish during production, it might have stood as a compelling psychological character study. As it is, there are some noteworthy ideas and moments tucked into what is otherwise a fairly uneven effort. The film suffers from weak production values, sparse and unimpressive effects, and visuals that lack flair or atmosphere. The direction is mostly utilitarian, though there are occasional signs of ambition, such as a surprisingly intricate split diopter shot that brings a moment of visual creativity to one of the many slow-paced dialogue scenes. While the decision to shoot in Istanbul had the potential to add an exotic flair, the locations are used so minimally that the film might as well have just been set in an anonymous Italian town. In truth, the setting seems to have been chosen purely due to the involvement of a Turkish co-producer. A large part of what does work is thanks to the committed performance of American actor Farley Granger. He takes the material seriously and avoids turning in a campy or exaggerated portrayal. His depiction of a man teetering on the edge of mental collapse lends the film a degree of credibility it might not otherwise have earned. It's arguably one of the strongest roles he played during his stint in the Italian B-movie circuit, and he even dubbed his own voice for its release. Opposite Granger is Erica Blanc, who delivers a sultry and magnetic performance. Her character, never even given a name, oozes sensuality and is depicted as the physical embodiment of Ward's obsession. Blanc's presence adds a charged erotic energy, though the film keeps it ambiguous as to whether she is a real person or a product of the protagonist's unraveling mind. This tension is a key component of the film's limited allure. Also appearing is Kristen Nell in yet another variation of Ward's idealized fantasy woman. Nell, radiant but silent, doesn't speak a word of dialogue and overcompensates with expressive gestures, but she brings a certain sweetness to her brief role. Born in Austria in 1946, Nell began acting in the mid-1960s and was sometimes credited as Kristen Nelly. Her resume includes work in spaghetti westerns like Shoot Gringo, Shoot, 1968, and historical adventures such as Ivanhoe, the Norman Swordsman, 1971. She also appeared in gialli like So Sweet, So Dead, 1972, again opposite Granger, and The Bloodsucker Leads the Dance, 1975, which tragically turned out to be her final film. Kristen Nell, who had been romantically involved with older character actor Ettore Mani, passed away in 1975 at just 28 years old after battling leukemia. The film's director, Renzo Russo, remains an enigmatic figure. Little biographical information is available, though he seems to have entered the film industry during the 1950s. His career was sporadic and included occasional work as a screenwriter in addition to directing. If current records are accurate, the red-headed corpse marked his final credit behind the camera. In the end, the red-headed corpse may not satisfy those looking for traditional giallo thrills. There are no stylish murders, no black-gloved killers, and no intricate mysteries to unravel. But it remains an intriguing curio at the fringes of the genre. Its psychological ambiguity, sexually charged performances, and descent into fractured identity place it more comfortably alongside the era's surreal character studies than its pulpier giallo peers. While its execution may fall short of its ambitions, and its production is undeniably rough around the edges, the film still holds a strange, melancholic power, offering a glimpse into a troubled mind unraveling, where love, lust, and madness blur into one. For Farley Granger completionists, or fans of the genre's weirder, more introspective corners, it's worth a look, if only to appreciate the ghost of a better film haunting its frame. The second giallo we'll cover is The Crimes of the Black Cat, an Italian production released on August 12, 1972. The film is directed by Sergio Pastore, who also co-wrote it, along with Alessandro Continenza and Giovanni Simonelli. Music is composed by Manuel De Sica. The cast is made up of Antonio De Teffe, billed as Anthony Stephan, as Peter Oliver, Silvia Coscina as Françoise Balaise, Giovanna Lenzi as Susan Leclerc, Giacomo Rossi Stewart as Victor Morgan, Renato De Carmina as Inspector Jansen, Umberto Rajo as Burton, Annabella Incontrera as Helga Schurn, and Shirley Corrigan as Margot Thornhill. The plot centers on Peter Oliver, a blind composer currently scoring a suspense film. One evening, he arrives at a restaurant expecting to meet his lover, Paula, only to receive a terse breakup letter in her place. While nursing his heartbreak, Peter eavesdrops on a nearby conversation between a man and a woman. Though he can't catch every word, he clearly senses that the woman is being coerced into something, likely in exchange for drugs. The following day, Paula is found murdered, and Peter quickly becomes a prime suspect. Determined to prove his innocence, he enlists the help of his assistant Burton and a woman named Susan. Their investigation leads back to that overheard exchange, which turns out to be the key to unraveling a string of connected killings. The Crimes of the Black Cat wears its influences on its sleeve. Chief among them, the early work of Dario Argento. The premise of a blind amateur sleuth immediately evokes The Cat o' Nine Tails, 1971, and even the film's title seems to riff on Argento's. The climactic freeze frame, delivered with jolting finality, likewise brings to mind Four Flies on Grey Velvet, also 1971. There's even a familiar Argento-style device, a hazy memory of a crucial clue that slowly takes form as the plot progresses. A screeching bird captured on a tape recording provides a key to one suspect's hideout, another nod to Argento's favored motifs. The resulting film may not blaze new trails, but it finds other ways to keep the viewer engaged. The setting is nominally Copenhagen, though the film makes very little of its Scandinavian backdrop. Director Sergio Pastore doesn't capitalize on the location's visual potential. Aside from a few outdoor sequences and signs in Danish, one could easily mistake the setting for anywhere in Europe, Italy included. The cinematography leans toward the pedestrian, and Pastore's reliance on handheld shots and aggressive zooms doesn't do much to elevate the atmosphere. Most of the murder scenes lack inventiveness, but the final razor attack stands out as one of the most viciously executed in early 1970s gialli. The nastiness of the finale brings to mind Ricardo Frida's The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire, 1971, a similarly messy but strangely charming film, though Pastore's overall direction displays a higher degree of technical competence. The lead character, Peter Oliver, strongly resembles Franco Arno, the blind puzzle solver from The Cat o' Nine Tails, and the film as a whole ties into a broader cinematic fascination with sightless protagonists in peril, a trend popularized by Terence Young's Wait Until Dark, 1967. Like Arno, Peter resists being pitied for his condition and proves to be resourceful, but Pastore's script places him in more direct danger. In one sequence near the film's conclusion, the killer attempts to manipulate Peter into walking to his death. Unfortunately, any tension that should have emerged is undercut by Anthony Steffen's flat and emotionally inert performance in the role. That being said, the film does offer one of the more uniquely bizarre killing methods in the genre's canon. Without spoiling too much, it involves a shawl, used purely for visual flair, and a specially trained cat whose claws have been dipped in curare poison. It's ludicrous, sure, but screenwriters Alessandro Continenza, Giovanni Simonelli, and Pastore himself deserve credit for originality, if not plausibility. This gleeful absurdity gives the film a distinctive flavor and separates it from more formulaic efforts. Adding a self-referential twist, the film's protagonist is depicted as scoring a giallo film. The footage used to represent the project he's working on is actually lifted from Lucio Fulci's A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, 1971, another film produced by Edmondo Amati. One particularly shocking clip, featuring a woman being stabbed repeatedly in the chest, may have inspired Pastore to try and match, or even outdo it with his own gruesome climax. There are enough strange and playful ideas in the script to suggest a better movie could have emerged, but like many gialli of its era, success ultimately hinges on execution, and in that department, Pastore never quite rises to the occasion. As for the cast, the performances are mostly forgettable. Anthony Steffen, cast as Peter, delivers yet another wooden portrayal. His stoic, blank-faced demeanor makes it hard to invest in the character's journey, and it remains something of a mystery how he maintained popularity with Italian audiences during this period. With so many talented actors available, Franco Nero, George Hilton, Jean Sorel, Luigi Pistilli, Alberto de Mendoza, so many more come to mind. It's a shame that the production settled for such a bland lead. Silva Koshina fares slightly better, though her role doesn't give her much to do. Born in Yugoslavia in 1933, Koshina gained fame in the late 1950s, co-starring with Steve Reeves in Hercules, 1958, and Hercules Unchained, 1959, and later appeared in works by Georges Franju, Judex, 1963, and Federico Fellini, Juliet of the Spirits, 1965. The 1960s saw her typecast in glamorous roles, often in Euro spy thrillers like That Man in Istanbul, 1965, and Deadlier Than the Male, 1967. By the 1970s, she embraced more risque parts, shedding her clothes in films like Mario Bava's Lisa and the Devil, 1973, and Fulci's Young Dracula, 1975. She would later feature in the gialli So Sweet, So Dead, 1972, and Delitto d'autore, 1974. Koshina passed away in 1994 at the age of 61. Annabella Incontrera, meanwhile, was becoming something of a fixture in gialli, frequently cast in the role of the seductive lesbian, as seen in Double Face and The Case of the Bloody Iris. She plays a similar character here, but is given very little screen time. Character actor Umberto Rajo turns in one of his more memorable performances as Peter's loyal servant, and Giacomo Rossi Stewart plays Coscina's unfaithful husband, bringing a hint of smarm to the proceedings. As for director Sergio Pastore, he remains a relatively obscure figure. Born in 1932, he entered the film industry in the late 1960s and alternated between screenwriting and directing. His output includes around a dozen films, with his last being the Giallo Giallitly, 1987, where he was credited under a pseudonym as supervising director. That project was helmed by his wife, actress Giovanna Lenzi, who also appears in The Crimes of the Black Cat as Susan. Pastore died in 1987, closing the book on a career that flirted with potential, but largely remained under the radar. In the end, The Crimes of the Black Cat might not be a landmark in the Giallo canon, but it offers just enough eccentricity to earn its place in the conversation. From its ludicrous murder method to its unapologetic Argento cribbing, it's a film that wears its genre affiliations proudly, if clumsily. While Pastore's direction lacks the style and flair that defines the best of the genre, and Anthony Stephan brings all the charisma of a wax figure, there's still charm to be found in its oddball execution and meta flourishes. It may not be the sleekest black-gloved killer in the room, but it certainly scratches. The third and final Giallo we'll discuss is 7 Murders for Scotland Yard, also called Jack the Ripper of London or Jack the Mangler. This Italian-Spanish co-production debuted in Spain on July 10th and in Italy on September 14th, 1972. The film was directed by José Luis Madrid, who also co-wrote the screenplay with Paul Naschy. Some prints list Tito Carpi for contractual reasons, but the writing duties belong largely to Madrid and Naschy. Music is composed by Piero Piccioni. The cast includes Paul Naschy as Bruno Doriani, Patricia Loran as Lulu, Renzo Marignano as Inspector Campbell, Orchidia DeSantis as Sandy, Andres Resino as Winston, and Irene Mir as Belinda. The plot follows Bruno Doriani, a former circus acrobat who now limps through life as a shell of his former self. Living in the fog-choked underbelly of London, he becomes entangled in a series of brutal murders, clearly patterned after the infamous Jack the Ripper slayings. The victims are all prostitutes, and Bruno soon finds himself among the top suspects, especially when connections between him and the victims begin to surface. Desperate to clear his name, Bruno joins forces with Sandy, a sultry nightclub hostess, a friend willing to help him dig deeper into the investigation. As the bodies continue to pile up and paranoia spreads, will Bruno eventually uncover the shocking truth? While 7 Murders for Scotland Yard ticks many Giallo boxes, black-gloved POVs, a wrongfully accused protagonist, and an absurdly operatic killer, it often feels like a Spanish krimi wedged into an Italian thriller's skin. Madrid's direction is serviceable, but never stylish, and the visuals lack the eye-popping flair we associate with directors like Argento, Martino, or Bava. Most of the film is soaked in browns and grays, with London's atmosphere rarely used to its full Gothic potential. The murders themselves are functional but largely tame, relying more on aftermath than choreography. That said, there's a persistent sense of sleaze and grit that lends the film its character, especially once we reach the killer's underground lair, complete with formaldehyde-filled jars and dismembered trophies. Paul Naschy brings a reliable weight to his role, though the character of Bruno lacks the nuance of Naschy's more iconic performances. His physicality helps sell the ex-acrobat backstory, and while his brooding intensity suits the film's tone, it doesn't do much to elevate the drama. The supporting cast ranges from decent to perfunctory, with Orchidia DeSantis offering some energy as Sandy, though she's ultimately sidelined by the film's increasingly bizarre final act. The film tries to balance its murder mystery with a moody character study, but it never quite pulls it off. The pacing suffers due to procedural digressions and repetitive interrogations, and Madrid's direction often feels flat when it should be feverish. By the time Seven Murders for Scotland Yard hit screens in 1972, Orquídea DeSantis had already established herself in the genre with roles in The Weekend Murders, 1970, A Suitcase for a Corpse, 1970, also called Your Sweet Body to Kill, and Devil in the Brain, 1972. Andres Resino also appeared in Murder Mansion, 1972, marking his second giallo film this year. Franco Borelli had recent genre credits in The Weekend Murders and The French Sex Murders, 1972, where he played Roger. Composer Piero Piccioni had previously scored gialli, including The Night of the Scorpion, Devil's Ransom, and In the Eye of the Hurricane. Writer Tito Carpi also brought prior giallo experience, having written The Devil with Seven Faces, 1971, and The Cold Eyes of Fear, 1971. Director José Luis Madrid would later return to murder mystery territory with The Crimes of Petiot, 1973. Still, there are moments, especially the jars of preserved organs and a couple of blunt force shock reveals, that offer enough pulp to keep viewers engaged. The killer's motive, a twisted fixation with anatomical purity, isn't deeply explored, but adds a layer of grotesque psychology that helps justify the film's gruesome finale. There's also a winking bit of self-awareness in Nashi's arc. The implication that he's being hunted more for his past sins and lower-class status than actual guilt creates a small, lingering sense of social critique, though it's buried beneath the grindhouse theatrics. Ultimately, Seven Murders for Scotland Yard is more curio than classic. It never achieves the visual or narrative elegance of the best gialli, but it's a sleazy, peculiar mashup of serial killer tropes, gothic horror, and Eurocrime theatrics. For fans of the genre looking to dig deeper into its Spanish co-productions or build out their Paul Naschy shelf, it's a worthwhile oddity. Just don't expect a masterpiece. This one's more rain-soaked alley than blood-spattered runway. And those are the forgotten gialli for this episode. I hope you learned about something new here, and if you are interested in watching these movies, you can look them up online. If you do watch them or have already seen them, I invite you to leave your thoughts on them in the comments. Follow The King in Giallo on Instagram and give a like to The King in Giallo on Facebook. Subscribe here on YouTube if you aren't already, and join me every week for new giallo film content. Join The King in Giallo on Patreon for exclusive content and early access to all of my videos. Thank you very much for your continued support, and thank you especially to my patrons who support my work directly. This is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo, and if nothing else, I'll see you next time.
Rotten bitch, I'll kill you! It was just a normal reaction. Sure, at that moment I felt like breaking her neck.